Hi, I'm Steve Barlow. This is the Humanised Workforce Future You podcast video, where we're talking about perceptions of the future, issues that we need to be aware of, and their role in a rapidly changing work and life environment.
Hi, I'm Craig Saffin. The Humanised Workforce Future You podcast series is focused on the key factors evolving to create a more humanised workforce and how people from all walks of life are creating their future selves.
Welcome to the Humanised Workforce Future You podcast. I'm Steve Barlow. As always, I'm joined by Craig Saffin. How are you today, Craig?
Good, Steve. I'm developing webs between my fingers and my toes. There's been so much rain.
I think so.
It's a survival thing. We talk about the future of work. I think our future of work is going to be swimming everywhere.
Okay, so today we've got a guest, and our guest today is Sheila Cabacungan. So welcome, Sheila. It's good to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me, Steve and Craig.
Sheila, do you want to give us a bit of a background as to who you are and what you do?
Sure. Okay, long story, very, very short. I'm Sheila Cabacungan. I pretty much sit here as a Western Sydney small business owner that's kind of had to pivot, iterate, do all sorts of things to sort of stay in business. My practice is in financial planning. So education, training, accreditations are all around financial planning. I've gotten myself to the point where I am self-licensed. So there is basically nothing between me and my client. There's no fear or favor coming through from, product manufacturers. I'm not an employed financial planner, and holding my own license gives me that flexibility to provide the best advice I can. My practice is 13 years old, and it looks after Western Sydney small business owners. That's how I've sort of set it up. And what I'm aiming to deliver is financial education to get people from being literate through to capable, and then start to look at how they can use skills, time, energy, attention to generate the money that they need to live well financially. I do a lot of behavioural money coaching using some really cool behavioural finance tools and quizzes. At the end of the day, financial planning is all about giving people strategic advice around what to do with their money and the generation of their money. And in a small business context, it really is all about getting that business, working with their team of accountants and other financial professionals to get that business as sustainably profitable as possible, so that we can get on with the business of building wealth, really, so that we can get to the point where you're not working so hard on the job of generating the cash flow, and that the cash flow is actually self-sustaining, and we can start to channel it into other areas that will diversify wealth. So that's me in a nutshell. I mean, I've pretty much raised in Western Sydney, so I've got a great big beating heart for places like Blacktown, Parramatta, all the way out to the Hawkesbury, and my clients have spread across the world, but they all started in Western Sydney. For the heart I have for Western Sydney, I sit on the board of SWA 99.9 FM, which is a local community radio station, and I host a weekly radio show on that station every week. It's conversations about money, life and business on a Wednesday night. That's kind of me in a nutshell. Big, loud, proud Filipino Australian family. We're in each other's business all the time. That's me.
It's fantastic. Yes, a lot of people I speak to in Western Sydney, they definitely know you, and you're very well connected.
Oh, thank you.
Speaking very favourably of you, of course. Can you tell me why are you passionate about financial planning? What is it that drives you on that and gets you out of bed every morning?
Well, I think the passion comes from the reality that we've structured the humanity in this world to basically operate on money, and to operate on the exchange of our skills, time, energy, and attention for the money that we need to secure both, our basic living needs, all the way through to, if you want to be that best life, living your best life, Oprah Winfrey kind of person, along that way, you're going to need to master this money game that we all have to play, and be able to and master yourself. So a lot of financial planning is all about being able to explain what it is that you're about and who you are in the world, and how you're going to use your skills, time, energy, attention to get the money that you need and to keep it flowing so that you can live that life that you want. I guess what the last 3 years has done has got everyone focused on that, but also it's exposed the lack of education and capability that we have in this area. Like if you look at the key sources of stress and mental health issues, one of them can all be attributed to money and the relationship you have to money, and or the relationships you have in and of itself. So it's the humanity to the humanity thing. But one of the ways that we express that is through money and how we use skills, time, and energy and attention.
Right.
So it's a fascinating area.
Yeah,
and
so what you're saying, sorry to interrupt you there, so you think over the last few years it's heightened people's attention to this sort of thing because of the pandemic and the change in work practices we've seen?
Oh, absolutely. It's all interrelated, because if you look at it, most of us use our physical ability to get up out of bed and go to work to generate the money that we need to actually sustain our life. So if you look at it from that angle, forcing people to change the way that they work through the pandemic has meant that they've questioned what it is that they're doing. It's why people have decided to pack up and go to regional areas. It's why we've had to a certain extent, reassess how we work and where we work. I mean, something as basic as, do I need to spend an hour commuting to the city versus can I do my job, produce the same, if not better outcomes? Yes, it's a health crisis, but can I continue to do that? What's the impact on all of that for how businesses operate is an interesting question to look at. There are so many things that are sort of up in the air, and it's an exciting and challenging time to be in business, but also to be a mentor and advisor to business as well. And at the end of the day, in the small business context, in my business and in your businesses, our businesses have to be that engine that generates the cash flow.
Right.
Yeah. So it's how do we do that and reconcile everything else that we've got to do if we're employers, if we're, to a certain extent, leaders in our own families, leaders in our community, how do we do all of that? These are all large questions, and it's very much beyond where do I put my super and how do I pay my bills and where do I budget? It's bigger than that. How do I budget?
I was astounded during the pandemic how many people made huge life-changing decisions without waiting for the pandemic to be nearly over, like moving towns and moving like you were just talking about. And the people were prepared to make those decisions, weren't they?
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit, you mentioned about behavioral money coaching. Can you talk a bit about that and about what that involves and why people would engage in behavioral money coaching?
So what behavioral money coaching, it is about 20 years old now. So the founder, one of the founders in this world of work was a financial planner, but was also a trained psychologist. And I think a lot of traditional financial planning has centered on the assumption that we have a rational human being making decisions. And, subsequent studies have shown that when you are making a major life decision involving money, which let's face it, they all will, it's not necessarily the logical part of your brain that's actually driving the car, making the decision for you. So what behavioral money coaching is about is giving a language and a way to process through how people make decisions about money. And supporting all of that is the fact that it takes into account that you have different aspects of a personality, and to a certain extent, if you actually understood and named who's making money decisions or which part of your core personality is actually making those decisions, then you can actually start to make decisions that are more grounded in what's going on in your head and your heart at the time. Right. So the science behind it is a psychometric quiz, really, that will basically determine how are you when you make decisions about money, what's triggering you. And a lot of that is based in cognitive behavioral therapy. It's based on looking at how you created your money, your education and skill set around money. And we work with personality types that are all grounded in sort of the science and the psychology behind it. But once we can actually name that aspect of your personality, then we can actually deal with it. We can start to work with who's making those money decisions. The fascinating thing that I found in doing this work over 20 years and bolting it onto the traditional financial planning, which is investments, insurance, superannuation, that sort of stuff, is that I'm finding that when people make goals, knowing their money personalities, their relationship to money, doing all of the work that's needed to get to the point where they can make informed decisions, the decisions actually stick. They don't vacillate. They're a lot more resilient when it comes to markets doing what they do. And they're able to actually have, they're able to navigate better. those money decisions.
So they don't second guess themselves and things like that, or have buyer's remorse and things like that.
Well, yeah, I mean, they may, but they actually understand that it's just me having buyer's remorse. It doesn't mean I've got to unpack the entire plan that I've put in place. It's that sort of stuff. So it takes the extremes away. Yeah.
So that's fascinating. We haven't covered this aspect of the humanised workforce before, so this is really interesting for us. And what I want to understand is, are you dealing with professionals on an individual basis, or are you mainly dealing with SME business owners?
Well, my client base is diversified. The root client is a self-employed business owner, or it's a business owner themselves. I do work with, obviously with that, you are working with family groups. So, I have everyone from doctors, lawyers, all the way through to young apprentices coming out of their apprenticeship. Right. And what's been interesting is that, again, concentrating in Western Sydney, the nature of the client I'm working with, the one that's got the most potential to actually live that best life, isn't necessarily concentrated in one particular type of professional business or industry. Right. What I'm finding is my most upwardly mobile, affluent clients now are completely different to what they were 13 years ago. Back then it was doctors, lawyers, a lot of the white collar professionals. Now I'm having conversations with young electricians, young plumbers, people in the buildings trade, and we're having the conversations that I never thought we would have. I'm having conversations with them about building professional practices within a traditional trades role, So, for example, I'm having a conversation at the moment with a group of mechanics about how do they actually grow this business, still speaking to what it is that they wanted to do, which was fix cars and, do a whole lot of other things, but also the fact that if they want to continue going, maybe they should be doing it in a partnership similar to what an accounting firm has or a law firm has. Right. Is there a way to actually do that? And you would have thought, trades businesses shouldn't necessarily be having, historically have never had those conversations. Right. But, you look back over the history of work and humanity, it's doctors, lawyers were trades at one point in the 1800s.
Of course. Yeah, so I've often wondered why that partnership arrangement for lawyers and even large consulting companies like the Big Four consulting companies, why that model hasn't gone somewhere else. So what you're saying is that you're starting to get like that partnership arrangement in with electricians or mechanics or things like that, are you?
Well, I think the conversation is starting to happen now, primarily because we have a change. We're having a dynamic change in who is actually working and which generation is working and what they want. So you've got the Gen X, the millennials or Gen Y, and the Gen Zs really, who are looking at the whole work-life paradigm that they've inherited from their parents and grandparents, and to a certain extent, they want to reinvent, redesign, re-engineer, so that this whole work-to-live model will start to disappear.
Right. So is the main driver for this is fascinating. Is what the main driver for that from these younger people, these young professionals, is that work-life balance or the quality of life? Is that a main
I think
driver?
there's more of a whole of life, quality of life argument. I am not one of those people that believes that work and life can be balanced. I think it's got to be an integration argument, or integration that works for you, particularly when you're speaking in the context of a small business owner. Right. I don't know about you guys, but I run on a 24/7 calendar. Yeah. And it's not unheard of for me to do a client meeting on a Saturday afternoon, because that's when the client base can actually have that conversation with me. But it also means that if I want to have a nap in the middle of the day, I will have a nap in the middle of the day. So the one luxury that we have as business owners is this ability to control our clock. Now, sometimes in the hands of a workaholic business owner that's, doesn't necessarily have that work-life integration, it may mean that you are working 24/7 without the discipline and the capacity to say, no, I need to rest and I need time for my family and all the other things that we want to do to have a quality of life. Yeah. But I think in the context of small business ownership, which is where I play, that's my tribe as well, the control over the clock is the premium that we have.
Okay. Yeah. That's interesting. So a lot of these, do you think this is the beginning of a wave that's happening for these structuring of these businesses and the way these younger business owners are wanting to structure the professional relationships?
Oh, definitely. I think so. I mean, particularly in the local trade scene that I'm seeing here, but it's also in the other creative industries and creative areas. Even my younger professionals are looking at how do we integrate work and life.
Yeah.
We don't want to live for work. We want work to be part of who we are. The other thing I'm seeing is that there is definitely a trend towards how is my work going to contribute to the world I want to build. There's a lot of that conversation happening. So, and to a certain extent, I'm enjoying those conversations. What I need to do though, as an advisor, as a mentor around how people are going to be financially independent, is to have them define what that actually looks like and means. Sure. In a way that is okay. If you don't want that, if you don't want the whole work a career or a series of careers, retire cold at 65 or 67 and then go off to pasture, then what is it that you do want? I know what you don't want. Start painting for me what you do so we can get the rest of the ducks in a row to be able to get what you want.
Yeah, and whether it's a feasible business model too, because
absolutely, because I run across business like people who are starting out. They might be side hustling, they want to turn something into a business, and the first thing I look at is how are you going to make money in a sustained way that's even going to feed you now, and then on top of that, create the conditions for you to fulfill on your business plans, fulfill on your life plans, and have you build a nest egg that's going to be good enough. How bulletproof are you going to be with that particular strategy?
I'm so glad you've raised this about the younger generation and the perspective they bring to the workplace and to professional lives. I've always found that leading younger people, you have to provide context and the journey that you're going on, and also the broader social responsibility piece, which is what you raised. Is very much more important for younger people. They're thinking about this all the time, and we can see that with the current discussion with the netball sponsorship and things like that that's going on at the moment. So.
Yeah, but I think not to say that, what we've got to acknowledge though is that the structure of the world does require people to at some point make some sort of commitment. For example, taking on, you had the example of engaging younger people in the world of work, in paradigms or structures of work that maybe previous generations created.
Yes.
At the end of the day, an employee is exchanging skills, time and energy and attention for money.
Yes.
And I think sometimes the pendulum swings too far in favor of trying to keep the younger person happy. The young person has to be able to articulate how they're going to contribute, and how they're going to actually provide that skills, time, attention, and energy to the pursuit of the business. So if there's alignment, then it all works well. And when there's not, that's when I think things can break down. So I think there's more accountability. I've got to say that I encourage younger people to take on board, to say that, okay, if you're on the job, you're on the job, and this is what the job looks like. If you sign up for a specific period of time to be able to do that job, and this is the way that the world is working, not to say that you can't contribute to the future of it, but you're here to perform a task.
You've got to do the task, but what do you want in exchange? It's sort of like an arbitrage thing, isn't it? So
definitely, there's more scope for negotiation. I think the business owners can either see it as empowering or disempowering. I think it's empowering in the sense that you now have the flexibility and the creativity to bring to the table when you're negotiating employee salaries, pays, working condition, and everything else. Completely blank slate this. And yes, there are legal requirements. You've got to pay a wage. There's work health and safety. There's compulsory superannuation. But to a certain extent, you can decide, okay, is it work from home? Is work from home actually going to save the employer money if we can get this thing set up right? Can things be done in a 4-day work week, which will allow for, that pursuit of whole of life and the quality of life? But could I also get some more productivity out of those 4 days? And how do I enforce productivity over those 4 days? If I can actually get my business to the point where my employees are actually incentivized to produce to have a productivity target rather than a time spent target, then maybe that's a trade-off that can be made. Yeah.
How interesting. I've had experience, lucky enough to have experience working in Silicon Valley companies, and it was, in the day, it was good enough to have foosball tables and table tennis tables and a decent canteen or cafeteria, and everyone would be motivated to stay at the company. But now it's you're talking about much broader issues and higher level issues, and I think it's a fascinating way in which things are developing.
Yeah, and I think one of the interesting conversations that needs to be had alongside this, flexibility in the world of work and younger generations coming through and to a certain extent transforming what work will look like, is at the top, at the older end, the boomers and the builders really need to get a handle on what happens afterwards. What are your exit and succession plannings? And that's two separate things, right? You've got succession, which basically assumes that the business will carry on in some form or another. But you've also got founders exit, or that generation that's in the control of the business exiting. Two separate things, and they might be interrelated, but I think that conversation has to be had, and it's overdue. And I know the two of you would agree with that.
Outstanding way to finish up there, Sheila. Steve, you want to draw it together for us?
Yeah, okay. So it's been a really interesting discussion. And I think it's, to my mind, it's been focused on the person and people, and saying, well, how do you turn up in the world? How do you think around money? What kind of part of your personality is driving you when you think about money, and when you make decisions about money? How rational are you being, and how good are the decisions that you're making? And then sitting alongside of that is what do you actually want to be? In who do you want to be? What kind of a life do you want to have? How do you want to contribute? What contribution are you going to make, and how are you going to do that? And these are the central issues that I hear you say we've got to kind of think about and get right. The money is important, because without the money, we can't really live our best life, because we're struggling to survive. And without the money, we're going to be stressed, and we're not going to be able to perform and be the best we can. So the money's important, and you're helping people to make good decisions about that, and to identify what they really want and how they want to turn up. But these are questions and issues that you're getting us to understand are the central things. Another thing you've talked about is don't get too stuck up on paradigms that might be outdated, that used to work but don't work anymore. Just really think rationally and logically about it, and make some good decisions about who you want to be, but be clear about it.
Yeah, I think clarity is the gift that everyone needs to have. Because once you've got clarity around who are you, how you want to show up in the world, what impact do you want to have, everything else will fall in place. Because you can make stuff happen, and you can take actions when you know what it is that you want to do. I mean, I tend to say to my clients, think of me like a GPS. Now, a GPS can show you anywhere you want to go, but you've got to actually know where you want to go. Or even if you don't know yet, because let's face it, sometimes getting lost on a scenic route takes you to brilliant places, but knowing that you don't want to end up in a ditch or, out to sea without a boat, once you get clarity, stuff can happen.
Yeah, that's fantastic, Sheila. Thank you for your insights today.
No worries.
Thanks for watching this video on Humanised Workforce Future You. Please leave a rating or review for the series on the medium where you source your videos.
The transcripts for today's video can be found on craigsaffin.com. Please subscribe to the series to avoid missing out on future episodes.